I'm Bessie. Sitting here now, the silence in the house is almost deafening. It's been a long while since the chaos and upheaval, but sometimes it all comes back like a storm. I remember that fateful night when my mother's voice sliced through the air like a knife. Your kid took the missing $10,000 from the safe. The room seemed to freeze. The clinking of forks stopped midair, and the delicious aroma of roast chicken that had filled the room moments ago now turned sickly in my throat. My sister, Ivy, didn't even bat an eyelash. "We saw him near it," she said, her tone cold and certain, as if she was delivering a death sentence. My son, Finn, stood there, his sneakers still dirty from playing in the backyard. His eyes were wide, filled with fear and confusion, like he couldn't catch his breath. I wanted to scream at them, to demand an explanation, but something inside me snapped. I reached into my tote bag and placed a small silver USB on the table. "Then let's see who really did," I said quietly, my voice betraying no emotion. But how did we end up here? It all started some time ago. After my divorce, Finn and I moved into a small rental house a few streets away. I work as a freelance accountant, but the income is barely enough to make ends meet. My parents, being the kind-hearted people they are at first glance, started helping us with groceries, tuition fees, and small bills. I never asked for it, and I didn't refuse either. Little did I know that this help came with strings attached, strings that Ivy was all too eager to pull. The first time money disappeared, it was $100 from Mom's wallet. Mom tried to laugh it off, joking about having senior moments, but I noticed her eyes scanning the room a little too long. The second time, $300 vanished from Dad's locked drawer. Dad said nothing, but I saw him checking the lock twice the next day. By the third time, when $500 went missing from Ivy's purse, the atmosphere in the house became toxic. Ivy claimed she had left her bag upstairs while taking care of her baby. Her eyes landed on me, and then drifted towards the window where Finn's shoes were lined up. She didn't say it out loud, but I could hear the accusation in her silence. After that, Dad installed a heavy-duty, fireproof safe in his office. Only he, Mom, Ivy, and her husband, Leo, knew the keypad code. Dad told me over coffee one morning, "I just want peace in this house again." I nodded, but deep down, I knew that building walls wouldn't bring peace. And it didn't. Money kept disappearing, first in small amounts and then in larger ones. One week, $2,000 was gone, and the next it was $10,000. There were no signs of forced entry, no footprints, just a thick tension that you could almost taste. Mom started checking her purse whenever Finn walked by. Ivy and Leo would whisper to each other at the dinner table, their eyes always on Finn. Dad kept a meticulous record of every withdrawal and every bill, while I watched in silence as the situation spiraled out of control. I noticed that Leo's behavior was strange. He would avoid eye contact with everyone except the safe. His gaze would linger on the office door for just a second too long. I told Dad what I had seen. He didn't show any surprise. "Then it's time," he said. That afternoon, we hid a motion-activated camera inside a fake smoke detector, aimed right at the safe. Only Dad and I knew about it. Before leaving for work, Dad patted my shoulder. "If it's who I think it is," he said quietly, "I'll need proof, not guesses." I never thought that proof would come so soon. After Dad installed the camera, I hoped things would calm down. But the tension just became more subdued, like a storm brewing silently. At dinner, conversations would die halfway through. Mom would stare at her plate more than she ate. Ivy would constantly check her phone, as if she had a script to follow. Leo would sit there, drinking water, silent and twitchy, always close to the office. Then one week, $2,000 went missing again, and the next week another $10,000. Mom called a family meeting. The word family had never sounded so cruel. We sat in the living room, the lights too bright, the silence too loud. Mom started softly, the way she always does before she drops a bombshell. "Someone's been taking money from the safe again." And then her eyes landed on Finn. "You weren't there yesterday, weren't you?" Finn blinked, confused. Grandpa asked me to hand him his glasses." Before I could say a word, Ivy cut in. "We saw him near it," she said, her tone matter, of fact, like a police officer reading charges. The room started to spin. I could feel my pulse racing in my throat. Finn looked at me, his eyes pleading for me to defend him. But my mouth went dry, and no words came out. Everyone in the room was already convinced. Leo leaned back, crossed his arms, and let it happen. His silence was a confirmation for everyone. Finn's hand shook, and his voice cracked when he said, "I didn't take anything." Something inside me broke, a silent, internal break that changed me. I wanted to lash out, but instead, I looked at Finn and said, "Go get your sketchbook. Wait for me in the car." He obeyed, without a sound. When the door closed behind him, the room felt colder. Mom exhaled, as if she had been holding her breath for years. "I'm sorry, Bessie, but it keeps happening. What else are we supposed to think?" I forced a small, sharp smile. "Maybe the problem isn't who you think it is." Ivy scoffed. "You always twist things." Leo finally spoke. "If you've got something to say, say it." "Oh, I will," I said, soon. No one knew that Dad had been watching from the hallway. Later that night, he knocked on my door and handed me the drive. "Footage is ready," he said. "It's all there." I stared at the little silver USB, feeling like it weighed a ton. Proof. The thing everyone claimed to want, but I knew no one was really ready for it. The next day, Mom called again. Her voice was colder this time. "Your kid took the missing $10,000. That's when I decided to stop explaining and start showing. That Sunday felt off from the start. The air was still, as if the house itself was holding its breath for something terrible. Dad insisted that we come over for dinner to clear the air, but I knew clarity was the last thing my family was capable of. We sat in the living room. The TV was playing some cooking show, but no one was watching. The baby monitor hummed on the table beside Mom's coffee cup. Dad was in his office, checking the safe again. Ivy scrolled through her phone. Leo stared blankly into space, and Finn sat beside me, quietly swinging his leg. Then Mom said it. "Your kid took the missing $10,000 from the safe." The words hit me like a physical blow. I didn't even look at her at first. I just watched the color drain from Finn's face. Ivy added calmly and surely, "We saw him near it." I could tell she had rehearsed that line. Leo didn't say a word, just kept his eyes on the TV, as if he could make the truth disappear by ignoring it. I didn't defend Finn. I didn't beg. My hands moved on their own. I reached into my tote bag, pulled out the small silver USB Dad had given me, and placed it in the center of the coffee table. The click it made when it hit the wood was louder than anyone's voice. Mom frowned. "What's that?" "Footage," I said, my voice steady, almost too calm. "You wanted proof. Here it is." No one moved. "Play it," I told him. Dad appeared in the doorway, sensing the tension. He took the drive, went into the office, and closed the door behind him. 5 minutes passed. Ivy stood up halfway, then sat back down. Mom wrung her hands nervously. Leo stopped breathing, it seemed. Finn pressed against me, small and silent. When Dad came back, he didn't look at anyone. He just said, "You should all see this." We followed him into the office. The room smelled of dust and old carpet. The monitor glowed a cold blue. The file name read November 15th at 3:27 a.m. The video played, the time, stamp linking. The office door opened, and a figure stepped in. Ivy gasped first. It was Leo. He moved with practiced ease, walking straight to the safe, entering the code and opening it. He stuffed stacks of $100 bills into a black duffel bag, calm and efficient, like he had done it 100 times before. Finn's reflection flickered on the screen, his eyes huge and confused. Then Leo's face appeared in full view. Dad paused the frame. No one spoke. Leo's face turned as white as a sheet. He turned and walked out the front door, without a single word. The silence that followed was louder than any scream. Leo didn't come home that night. He left without his jacket, his car keys, and without any defense. The front door slammed shut, and the echo seemed to linger in the air long after the sound had faded. Mom sat down on the couch and covered her mouth, mumbling something about checking on the baby. Ivy just stood there in front of the paused video, as if she could make it change if she stared hard enough. Dad stayed in the office, silent, one hand on the mouse. Finn pressed against my arm. Mom, was that really Uncle Leo? His voice was so small it broke my heart. Yeah, I whispered. It was. That night, nobody slept. The house felt bare, as if it was ashamed of what had happened. You could hear the refrigerator humming, the wind through the vents, and every creak of the floorboards. The next morning, Leo's car was gone from the driveway. Ivy's face was hollow, her eyes swollen from crying or lack of sleep, or both. When I handed her a cup of coffee, she didn't look at me. You didn't have to trap him like that, she said. I almost laughed. Trap him? You think I made him steal? She flinched, as if my words hurt more than the truth itself. I didn't know, she said. I thought. Maybe Finn. Because that was easier. I cut her off. Easier than believing the man you sleep next to could lie to all of us. She didn't answer. When Dad came downstairs, he had printouts of the freeze frames from the footage. Leo's tattoo was visible on his wrist, the bills in his hands, and the safe wide open. He laid them out like evidence in a courtroom. No police, he said. Not yet. But he's done. No more money. No more access. Mom whispered. But he's family. Dad looked at her like she was speaking a foreign language. So was Finn. By noon, Ivy's debit card stopped working. When she checked her account, it was empty. Leo had cleaned it out before he vanished, taking all her checking and savings. She sank to the floor, holding her phone, whispering his name over and over, as if he could hear her through the static. I didn't touch her. There was nothing left to say. That night, she came into my room, her eyes red, her voice flat. Show me all of it. I opened the laptop and played every file in silence. One by one, each theft, each night, the same bag, the same calm movements. She watched every second. Halfway through, her hand covered her mouth, and her shoulders started to shake. When it ended, she just said, "He did it more than once." 3 times, I told her, that we know of. She stood up and left without another word. Dad started changing the locks that same night. New bolts, new codes, and even cameras on the porch. He called his lawyer the next morning. By evening, Leo's name was removed from every account, every document, and every insurance policy. 2 days later, a letter arrived in the mail. There was no return address, just our last names scrawled on the front. Inside was a note in Leo's messy handwriting. I tried. I really did. No apology, no explanation, just a motel receipt from Las Vegas. Ivy read it once, folded it neatly, and said, "He's gone." For weeks, the house felt like a shell. Mom refused to talk about the video, pretending it never happened. Dad worked late, always on the phone. Finn barely spoke. I would sometimes catch him standing in the hallway, staring at the locked office door. One night, Dad sat at the table with a glass of whiskey and said quietly, "When the money first started disappearing, I thought it might be Finn." I didn't say it out loud, but I thought it. I didn't respond. The truth was already there, in the silence between us. Ivy moved back into her old room with the baby. She barely ate, barely talked. I thought grief had swallowed her whole. Then one afternoon, she came to me and said, "I want to see the footage again." I asked why. "Because I need to hate him properly this time," she said. We watched it again. She didn't cry. When it ended, she said, "He used us all." A few days later, she went to the bank and filed for divorce. Life didn't go back to normal. It just changed. Finn started seeing a therapist. Mom baked too much bread. Dad fixed everything in sight, doors, fences, faucets, as if fixing things could fix our broken family. Then, just when the quiet started to feel real again, a car pulled into the driveway one night. Headlights cut across the curtains. Dad opened the door first. Leo stood there under the porch light, thin and pale, a duffel bag hanging off one shoulder. His face was drawn, his eyes hollow. He didn't step inside. He just reached into his pocket, pulled out an envelope, and dropped it on the mat. He turned and walked away without a word. Inside the envelope were casino chips, pawn slips, crumpled receipts, and one slip that made our blood freeze. A pawn ticket for Ivy's wedding ring, the one she had hidden at the back of her closet after he left. He had come back, into the house, into the baby's room. Somehow, he had slipped inside again. Ivy's knees gave out. That night, Dad had every lock replaced before sunrise. When the locksmith left, the house was silent, except for the ticking clock and the baby's faint breathing on the monitor. Mom whispered, "I don't want to hear his name again." No one disagreed. 2 months later, the call came from Las Vegas. Leo had overdosed in a motel room. No ID, no wallet, no excuses left. We buried him quietly. No speeches, no flowers, just a cold wind and the sound of dirt falling over wood. Standing there beside the grave, Ivy said, "He stole everything that mattered. But at least Finn got the truth." And I realized she was right. That truth had cost us $10,000 and a family that could never be rebuilt the same way again. After the funeral, the house went quiet in a different way. No one mentioned Leo again. Mom stopped setting an extra-plated dinner. Dad barely looked at the chair where Leo used to sit. Even the baby seemed to sense the hush, sleeping longer and crying softer. Ivy moved through the days like a shadow until one morning, she knocked on my door. Her hair was tied up, her eyes tired but steady. "Dad gave me a check," she said. $10,000. He said it's for Finn, for doubting him. She paused, swallowing hard. He said we all owe him more than that. I found Finn outside, drawing on the patio again, this time bright chalk suns and rockets. When I handed him the check, he tilted his head. "Did we win something?" "Kind of," I said. "We just got back what was ours." That night, the family sat together for the first real dinner in months. The same roast chicken, the same table, but it felt lighter somehow. Ivy poured wine. Dad carved the meat, and Mom even smiled. No one said Leo's name, but his absence finally felt like peace instead of punishment. After dessert, Ivy looked across the table. "I told Mom it was Finn," she said quietly. "I didn't see anything. I just needed to believe it wasn't him." Finn kept eating, calm as ever. "I knew," he said. Ivy's lip trembled. "I'm sorry." He nodded, as if forgiveness was easy when you're 11. When the plates were cleared, I stood at the sink, listening to their laughter drift through the house. It didn't sound perfect. It sounded real. Spring came quietly, and the trees outside my parents' house bloomed, as if they had been waiting for us to notice again. Life didn't go back to what it was, but it became something steadier, smaller, and honest. Sometimes, I still think about that night, the accusation, the silence, and the proof. Justice didn't come with a bang. It whispered, frame by frame, until no one could deny it. If you've ever been blamed for something you didn't do, tell me in the comments. You're not alone. Hit subscribe for more stories like this.